Africa's role in the global energy transition is deemed to be pivotal and also at a key turning point. That is all according to experts who are in attendance at the China-Africa Sustainable Investment Summit. It is currently underway in Kenya's capital of Nairobi. Now, currently, the continent is responsible for about 4% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, but it suffers from some of the biggest impacts of climate change. There has been an increasing focus now on how African nations can tackle the climate crisis, especially by boosting renewable energy. Well, the head of the Partnership for Economic Policy, Jane Mariara, says Africa is rich in the commodities which are needed for the green energy transition, but it still lacks resources needed to realize its potential. Take a look.
Sometimes we have the knowledge, sometimes or we can easily get the knowledge, but sometimes we do not have the resources to get this started. For instance, now, what is the cost of solar installation? There are people who are farming using solar, okay? But how much is the cost? Can a small a youth who came from school afford solar technology to do farming or even to heat water in their houses?
Well, let's now find out more about the discussions taking place at the summit today in Nairobi. We're joined by James Kakito. He joins us here in the studio. And of course, he is the Regional Energy Officer at the World Wildlife Fund for Nature and the Africa Energy Hub. Great to have you with us, sir, in the studio. Well, let's delve right into the discussions taking place at the summit. We know this year it's been a big, or rather hot topic across the globe. We're talking about calls for more climate financing for Africa going forward. Leaders are looking for the funding to implement those measures which are so urgently needed to control global warming. Give us a sense of how this year's China-Africa meeting is addressing some of these issues.
Yeah, thank you very much. To put things in perspective, first of all, is that Africa is the lowest emitter of carbon emissions globally in terms of per capita emissions. Followed by Asia, Europe, and then North America. So basically, Africa contributes much less to climate change globally than all the other countries combined. But at the same time, the deficit for climate financing is still very high in Africa. Africa basically needs up to $200 billion a year to combat climate change, and up to about $400 million leading up to 2030. So Africa cannot finance that alone. It will need international support. So this conference brings together delegates from China as one of the most industrialized countries and also leading manufacturing hub to address issues, to reflect on opportunities where financial flows can be made towards climate change. Of course, when we talk about financing climate change, we cannot have the discussion without understanding where the opportunities are in terms of public projects and also privately funded projects. So this conference was purposed to raise awareness, to present private opportunities, to raise awareness towards the need to invest more in climate finance, in green energy projects, so that African local developers can be able to access this financing, specifically from China.
Well, I want to delve a little further into the opportunities you're talking about, because China, we know, it has an increasingly important position when we talk about the South-South cooperation going forward. So what was the discussion around those opportunities and the role especially that China will play in Africa's just energy transition?
Yeah. It is a fact that China's South-South cooperation and involvement has raised global eyebrows. But at the same time, we need to look at the mutual benefit that lies between Africa and China. Right. For example, China has been a leading financer of infrastructure projects across Africa, financing roads, bridges, railways, and even energy infrastructure, like coal power plants, and even in some cases renewable energy programs. So we are looking at this as an opportunity for Africa to achieve its development needs, leaving alone the other considerations about influence and the debt trap. But the most focus for us is to see how can we finance Africa's sustainable development. But at the same time, the other question comes in under the fact that is this development that comes from China, does it meet the social, economic, and even environmental benefits? Because a lot of these projects come in as very fast fast-moving infrastructure projects,
Right.
High-level roads, high-level infrastructure, and sometimes they leave behind the social needs of the local communities. So even as we have this discussion, that ensures that we meet the mutual benefits of Africa and China. China gets its, it is able to do business in Africa, but also Africa is able to meet its development goals. The discussion about sustainability is important. And so the conference that we had over the last 2 days addresses issues of sustainability,
right.
greening the Belt and Road Initiative, and also greening the infrastructure projects that China is implementing in Africa.
That's an interesting one, greening the Belt and Road Initiative, which is quite big when we talk about China-Africa relations. But how does all this bring in issues such as carbon tax, for example, such as the fact that we're calling for reform to the global financial system, one in which we'll see more funds channeled towards climate? How is this event addressing those specific issues?
This event addresses the flexibility and the need to come up with innovative financing mechanisms. And when you talk about the carbon tax, we believe that the carbon tax should be implemented in a gradual and flexible manner to allow individuals and companies to gradually transition to cleaner and greener options or technologies. At the same time, there is need to have transparency in the global finance reporting system so that countries and individuals and companies and organizations can be held accountable concerning their green financing targets. So in terms of improving the global financial system, there needs to have incentives for green projects, but at the same time provide opportunities for companies and countries to gradually move away from fossil fuels, right, and delve into renewables. So the conversation is basically about divestments from fossil fuels and reinvesting those divestments into green projects.
Give me some more insight into how you expect this China-Africa Sustainable Development Summit. What are the outcomes that we can expect? Are we expecting deals, for example, to emerge on the table?
We definitely expected some deals, but to be honest, deals that are not really signed in a 2-day or 1-day workshop. So our key expectation from this conference was to initiate conversations to showcase opportunities that are available for Chinese companies, for Chinese investors, because we understand that a lot of Chinese companies were ignorant about what they can do in Africa, about what's available in terms of green investment. So this conference was a start to showcase the opportunities that are available. We had a number of project developers from across Africa, from Zambia, from Uganda, from Zimbabwe, from Mozambique, showcasing potential green projects, right, that are available for investment to Chinese investors. And so it's a start, but moving forward, we are going to now have follow-up mechanisms with the African project developers and the Chinese investors to see how we can actually realize actual investments for these projects that have been shared over the last 2 days.
Well, we'll certainly keep watching the discussion there closely. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio and giving us some insight into that event. That, of course, was James Kaketo. He's the Regional Energy Officer for WWF Africa Energy Hub.